Hi everyone, I'm Kira Dewey, a freshman biology major at St. Bonaventure University, and we're related. As much as I hope that my mom watches this video, I'm not really talking to her. Anyone that watches this video, if you're a biologist, a curious elementary school student, or someone who really doesn't care that much about science or education, we're still related to one another. In fact, you're related to everyone and everything else on the entire planet. Let me show you what I mean. There's more connecting us to each other than we're often aware of. To help us walk through our family history together, I've brought our family photo album, or at least a drawing that I made of one. I say it's ours because we are the result of the first ever cellular life on the planet, which we call the Protocell. Let's open up to the first page. On the left is a picture of our great-grand cell. There are really a lot more greats in that title, but for the sake of time, I won't say all of them. This is the first cell to ever appear on the planet around 4 billion years ago. On the right is one of her many generations of grandchildren who I've named Eukaryon John. This is a modern mammalian cell. Although a lot of time passed between the existence of our great-grand cell and Eukaryon John, there are only a few differences between them. Just like you see similarity between the faces of your family members in photo albums at home, the pictures on the first page of our family photo album share lots of similarities. For example, both our great-grand cell and Eukaryon John have a lipid or fat-based outer layer of protection called a membrane. They also both use RNA, or ribonucleic acid, that has the bases adenine, guanine, cytosine, and uracil. Both of these types of cells also use a proton gradient as a source of energy. I mentioned that both our great-grand cell and cells like Eukaryon John have lipid membranes. But this is actually true of all living organisms. The membrane that protects and compartmentalizes cellular life everywhere is made out of amphiphilic lipids, which are a type of fat molecule that have both a water-loving and water-hating section. The difference in affinity for water within these membranes is what allows them to spontaneously form a spherical bilayer or double layer in an aqueous or water-based solution. This is likely why and how the first cellular membrane came to be. This is what the next page of our family photo album looks like. On the left is the RNA that was present in our great-grand cell, and on the right is the RNA that's present in Eukaryon John, who is representative of humankind. Notice that RNA looks the same now as it did then, or almost. This is a really important piece of evidence of our history together. You, me, the person sitting next to you, every pet you've ever had, every plant in your garden, and anything living in the entire world uses RNA as a genetic code. Hydrothermal vents deep in the early ocean are the contested origin of life. A proton gradient existed between these vents and ocean water, which is hypothesized to have been used by early cells as a source of energy. The use of a proton gradient as a source of energy can be seen in cells today. For example, in our mitochondria, a proton gradient is used to provide us with energy in the form of ATP. You may be wondering why this basic cellular plan repeats for all living organisms. To help us walk through this concept, even though it might sound strange, I'll show you a video of my brother and I making a bracelet. But first, let's get familiar with the components of the video. Scientists aren't sure what form the RNA existed in within our protocells. For the sake of this video, we will imagine that RNA existed then like DNA does today, in a double helix. My brother Bryn will represent a template strand of RNA. RNA was likely self-replicating in early cells such as our great-grand cell. I will be playing the role of the replicator, not my brother Bryn, to demonstrate this better visually and to call attention to the fact that while the carrier and replicator were both RNA, they were not one unit. They were related though, sort of like how Bryn and I are siblings. The string that we use to make the bracelet represents the sugar phosphate backbone of these contested RNA double helices. The different colored beads will represent the 4 RNA nitrogenous bases, A, U, G, and C. The proximity between my brother and myself and the container for the beads represent the benefits of organization within a cell, which allow for more efficient processing and exchange of resources. So here we are in my basement, and I'm using my brother's bracelet as a template for my own. The beads are scattered everywhere, so I'm having sort of a difficult time putting together the pattern, and I have to keep looking up at his bracelet, then looking down again at the pile and choosing the correct color. I'm moving very slowly at making my own bracelet. Things look a little different here. For one thing, my cat's here, but he doesn't really have any purpose other than getting in the way, but I couldn't really get him to leave. So, otherwise, the beads are now in a container, and you can see that I've successfully finished 2 other bracelets, and I'm working on completing a 3rd. The changes, like the container and my brother sitting much closer to me, have helped me become more efficient at making bracelets. So, if only the best bracelet maker survived, would you rather be in the first or second scenario? I wasn't expecting anyone to choose the first scenario, but if you did, that's kind of weird, and I'm honestly a little bit worried for you. If you chose the second scenario, you definitely aren't alone. Our great-grandcell had the same idea. Keeping all of our resources protected and organized is much more beneficial to getting anything done. Much like Bryn and I did in the video that I just showed you, the self-replicating RNA that was present on early Earth benefited from a lipid membrane keeping all of its resources within one area. Since these membranes were first acquired by early life, any subsequent changes, like those seen in our comparatively more complex cells today, allowed for cellular life to become more efficient at replicating genetic material, utilizing energy sources, and exchanging resources within its environment. By extension of this logic, the only thing that separates us as species is what was more beneficial during a certain time and place. And what separates us as individuals within the same species becomes even smaller by comparison. So, even though you're probably not my mom, and I might not have known you before this video started, I hope that I've convinced you we're related. This isn't to say that our diversity as a race should be ignored. It is a source of beauty and should be celebrated. However, during times that challenge our ability to remember our unity and treat one another with love and respect, we might benefit from thinking about the billions of years of history that we share together, and exploring the evidence of this that exists on a cellular level. Thank you for watching, and welcome to the family.